Almost. It's
Almost?
Margriet Potgieter. It's a very challenging, that's why I giggle, because I
Yes.
know it's not your normal roll of tongue, but you're
Yes.
more than welcome. Margaret Potgieter, I can be for you.
Oh, okay.
For my English friends, definitely Maggie, Margaret. I don't
Okay.
mind at all.
Or
Can I just say again how sweet your hair looks? Sorry, I just want to get it out.
That's gorgeous. Thank
Thank
you.
you, it's out. It looks so sweet.
Oh, that's so cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm going to stop laughing
I
now.
just want to go like a friend in school.
Yeah, I know. So I'm
I
growing it
can't
out.
believe how I'm loving this. It's like a school friend I'm seeing, but I just want to pull your pony.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, I do. I'm constantly like,
Thank you. Now it's out of my system.
Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Well, a slightly different start to some of the other podcasts. And this is how Marguerite and I greeted each other. I did have my hair up in my pigtails and I did pull on them, which is what she was referring to about getting it out of her system. It was a lovely way to start the interview. And although we discussed many deep issues and things that Marguerite has had to overcome in her transformation process, we continued to laugh throughout the interview. And I've left all of that in as I've come to know Marguerite. It is very much a part of her personality and her journey in life to share. I know that you will enjoy this episode. Have you ever had one of those gut-wrenching moments where life ground you to your knees and you found yourself asking in despair, why me? This podcast is all about sharing your stories and journeys, from asking why me to declaring this is why me. Discover how ordinary human beings like you and I have found their extraordinary levels of hope, courage, compassion, and provided a new perspective for greater potential and self-empowerment during their darkest defining moment. As a creative artist and coach myself, my guests and I discuss the interconnectedness of emotion and transformation in those moments, and how their actions then seize the opportunity for discovering their unfiltered and authentic voice, and ultimately their life's purpose. I invite you to join me each week as we share insights into how adversity can be turned into a unique advantage. Today's guest is Marguerite. Now, I can't pronounce your name, Marguerite, because of my vocal cord dysfunction, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to my guests.
Vera-Lee, it's such an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Margriet and my surname is Potgieter.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome to call me Margaret. I feel so at home and I'm so looking forward to this chat with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marguerite. So you are the founder of Right and Shine Coaching in South Africa, and you're a mother of a 14-year-old son who just had his birthday. Marguerite is with me today to share her story of hitting rock bottom with the news that her marriage was over. This is a story I'm sure many of our viewers can relate to, and I myself went through a divorce, so I'm interested to hear how this moment impacted your journey through to becoming a life coach who empowers and inspires other women. Welcome to the WhyMe podcast, Marguerite.
Thank you so much. It really is an honor being here. It's a very, if I look back at patterns in my life, I think I started off as someone, I was adopted as a baby. So I'll start there. I think everyone's story starts somewhere.
They do.
And I think I basically was a people pleaser, like you won't believe. Like I would date someone, that Runaway Bride type of movie.
Yes. Okay.
And not my like shame. I was like, I actually feel sorry for the guys because they'd start out dating someone, but I was so insecure and so untrue to who I was. I tried so hard to please. So I'll start there.
Mm.
And it led up to, I had this beautiful life with a good husband. Really had a good life. But I really think if I look back, I saw the signs that it's not going to be long term. When we had our baby, my son was a year old when he asked for a divorce. And I literally didn't see that coming. I think if I look back, I knew it wasn't long term, and my identity was in that marriage. And that's when things get scary or got scary. I think I totally lost as you can, I didn't even have myself to begin with. So I lost my identity. And when I heard the news, I will never forget that moment. I was on the ground, like literally broken. I had nothing to live for. I felt like that.
Wow, I can imagine. If you don't mind, I'd just like to share a tiny bit of my story that relates to what you've
Yes.
just said. I actually knew quite well who I was, but I lost my identity within my marriage for a different reason, because of domestic violence and all the manipulative games that go along with that, and through a lot of sexual assault that happened during that marriage. So I knew what it was to know who I was, and I lost that and then had to reclaim it. I can only imagine what it would be like to have not even really understood that in the first place, and then, as you said, to have put your identity into that relationship, which so many of us do, to then have that essentially pulled out from under you one day and really feeling completely in pieces because of that, because you've got no solid understanding of who you are to fall back on. Wow.
I get goosebumps if you explain it like that. And also, thank you for sharing your journey. I think it's extremely powerful, especially like on this podcast, where we don't know who's listening. And I absolutely have so much respect. And I'm so sad, that I don't know why sometimes, but like I said, from my side, I was such a people pleaser.
Yes.
I never, it's like I didn't even know what I was mourning. I was sad. I didn't, and I feel sorry for people who tried to connect with me on that phases, because I didn't know, and I didn't even know I didn't know.
Correct.
So it's almost worse.
Yes.
But like you having that and losing it, it's such a powerful thing to gain that back, or to gain your voice and your dignity. And this is where I love stories and where I love communicating, because there's always a twist. There's always a plot twist in the story.
Absolutely is. And I'm really wondering now what happened from that point. Where did you go? You're on the floor, you're feeling completely broken, you don't know who you are, you've got a 1-year-old baby.
It was a nightmare. Like, when you go into, you're in trauma, you're in victim mode, because I was a victim. I really felt, and I laugh now, but if I look back, I published a book a few years ago in South Africa for single moms, and I wrote in the one chapter that I didn't even know what type of music I liked. I was that bad. Everything in my life, and the poor guy, but everything evolved in my head and in my world around him. And I think I definitely went into victim mode, in the sense of so traumatized and cut up. There's no way you can prepare yourself with a baby literally falling from, I think, the stage almost that you built for yourself, fake, life, that this picture that you had in your mind. So I really want to color that in almost, when I try and explain. It was very hard. It was really, I had to start as a secretary. Literally, I remember my son, and that I still get very sad, when I talk about him, because I was at home with him, and then suddenly he had to go to creche, and he would wave at me, crying, So it was moments like that I'll always, and it's good to remember where you come from, Vera-Lee. And I think that's where the beauty comes in. Like, that's where I was. And I remember in myself being very alone. I obviously lost a lot. I wrote a radio series, and I called it Found in the Aftermath. And I said, it's like a divorce is like going through a war, and you will understand we are survivors of an emotional war.
Yes.
And even if you do it civil, whatever, it's an emotional war. This isn't what you signed up for in life. This isn't what you stood in front of the altar when you said, so it's a lot of, I think, childhood pictures that in dreams, and so it's much more than the physical moment that you have to mourn. And you go through your stages, you go through the anger, you go through the denial. And I literally went through everything. I mean, I'm talking now, my son was 1, he turned 14 this weekend. So it's a 13-year journey that I'm speaking from now. And boy, oh boy, I learn every day.
Yes.
So for me, it's been an incredible, but the moment that I realized, I think there was obviously a lot of things happening and emotions up and down. You won't believe my like tipping point was when I realized I need help. And I reached out to a life coach. And that literally for me years ago was my turning point in terms of how I will approach what happened to me.
Right. So here you are now as a life coach giving back. And
Absolutely.
at the point that you've experienced a life coach, you were so broken. And as you said, you're a people pleaser, and yet you had to learn to receive help. That is a huge moment.
It was huge, and I didn't have the money. Like, I remember, and I just felt like I need to do something. Here I am. I need to make this better. I need to heal. And I didn't know. And life coaching, especially in South Africa, was a very new thing. But it was like, it was absolutely nice, safe to go for it. I'll never forget that, because there I was taught skills like how to set goals for yourself. Like weekly goals. I was bad. I was really like, it's like I didn't take responsibility for my life, if I have to be very honest, because story I always have a few sides. And I didn't take I was like, yeah, I've got the husband and the life and the white picket fences. And I had to learn literally to crawl almost in life on that stage. And I had to, and I set goals for myself. And I'm still like quite impressed, by the fact I'm a very action orientated person now. And I literally believe it's skills that I was taught and practiced since then.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. And it just shows the power of having the right coach and the right mentor in your life. And I always tell people, as somebody who was a single mum from when my child was 4 months old, nobody ever chose to be a single mum. It is just so tough, the road that you have to go on. And in these sort of circumstances, quite often you don't walk away financially well off, or with anything, or in like my case with $30,000 of debt. So it is a whole new world. And not only are you trying to discover who you are in all of that mess, you're trying to be a mother to your child. You're trying to put food on the table. You're trying to get your life together. There is so much transformation in that space. Well done.
No, absolutely. I absolutely, you really get what I think what I've been through. And I think if I think back as well, that moments of not knowing the budget and the food, he always had. but there were times when I really struggled,
Yeah.
and it's those moments that also make you realize, like, I always say you have a choice. But that was also from those moments, like, is this gonna bring you down, or are you gonna do something? And I literally think being a mom inspires me more than I will ever. And I get, and I think maybe it's the adoption thing as well, someone, my blood, my son, he literally, even the book I written for the single moms, I've dedicated to him. It literally, this young man is my inspiration. I'll do anything for him.
I
Like,
so relate to that.
It's such a, yeah, I will never forget. I prayed when I was pregnant. I had this big stomach, and I thought, I really feel lonely. I felt something was off, a woman's intuition.
Mm.
And I just thought to myself, I really want to raise this child with, with depth, and with, with the way I want to. I hope you understand what I mean.
Yes.
And I literally got my wish, because I'm really raising him. I started a nonprofit a year after the divorce. So I raised him in projects and took him to places that shaped him. I'm absolutely, the journey after the divorce, after rock bottom and building, is one of the most beautiful journeys, and I'll forever be thankful for that. It sounds weird, but I'm thanking that moment. I'm thanking my mentors in all of that. If it was nasty, whatever, even the nasty moments now, or the rock bottom sad moments now, is my mentors, and I'm thanking them for who I am today and who my son is today.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you recognize that. That is something that I very much relate to your story, particularly in the upping and taking baby, young child with you while you're trying to work and do all these things.
Yeah.
I used to feel guilty about doing that. And someone said to me when my son was about 4 or 5 years old, and I'd been doing this for a while, and I was like, oh, I really do feel guilty because I'm always up and taking him places. And even when things got too much for me, I would still be upping and taking us down to a park, for example, so we could get grounded and he could just run around. And I communicated this guilt almost that I felt that I was doing that and not providing what I'd grown up with, the typical scenario. And then she said to me, do you realize that your son is being exposed to all these wonderful people, all these wonderful experiences? And it was that different perspective that made me sit back and say, you're right.
Yeah, love it.
Mm.
Absolutely love it. And it's, this is not the lives that we thought in our heads, when we got married. We had it all planned out, Vera-Lee.
Mm-hmm.
We had it all planned out. But I truly believe our children are more resilient. I'm not saying, like, from an arrogant place. I'm saying it, life taught them to be this son of mine, he's 14, so he's getting like older now, like a young man.
Yes.
And he's someone that would really think on his feet. And I love that. I would always tell him, thank you, because he's definitely still helping me in the house. He's not like a young adult, but I can see he's resilient. And even COVID, if we think of COVID, he hasn't been to school for 5 months now. And to see how he's coping with this, I'm so proud. And it's not like I'm saying he's perfect, but those are life skills that can't be taught from books. And I love books.
Yes.
But those, we won't know how much they've learned, and by seeing their moms standing up, and just loving them and making them feel safe, even though everything is uncertain. And I think a lot of moms, whether you're a single mom or not, listening now will relate. COVID has been one of the most uncertain times of my life up to now. I think for everyone. And your child at home, to make them feel like, it's okay. It is okay. It's obviously uncertain and scary. So it's almost COVID for me. It's almost a metaphor of what we've been through, type of thing, and to be the constants in their lives, even though everything is changing.
Yes.
I definitely think moms all over will relate to this.
Yes, they absolutely will. One other thing that I wanted to explore with you is you've spoken about reclaiming who you are, reclaiming your identity as a single mum who is wanting to give the best opportunity for your child. I'd love to explore what trust means to you, because I feel that that process takes a lot of trust, not just in trusting the people who are guiding you, your life coach and the people in your inner circle. It takes a huge amount of trust to trust yourself to go there and do that inner work. But then you've got that third level of trusting that you are providing what you want and what your son needs to become that resilient, well-rounded person as he grows into adulthood. How do you respond with that?
The word trust is for me a powerful, beautiful word, especially if you think what I've come from.
Mm.
Like your world shattered, everything that you trusted is shattered, so it's so opposite. And trust for me, Vera-Lee, is something that I had to grow into as I grew as a person, into my identity. And it's something that I just know is okay. I just know I'm building the life, I'm doing the best I can, so it's almost like my inner circle as well. I trust them, with who I am, but they can really actually connect to me for the first time. And I think my close people, and I've had friends for years, so it's not like I was fake. I was just lost.
Yes.
But I think they saw that and they grew with me and they're supporting me and still loving me. But it's more a deeper connection. Maybe it's because we get older as well. But the trust in the process, I think, is there above all. And that was something that I didn't have. I didn't trust the process. I didn't trust myself. I didn't, especially the role as single mom is something I looked down to, years ago when I was younger. Oh, single mom, oh, shame. It's like a stigma that I truly am so honored to be a part of breaking that stigma.
Yes.
But it took 13 years to say what I'm saying. It's not like an overnight process.
No.
But the trust is absolutely in the process. The trust is in the beautiful moments like now. It's like, it's just more than something you can see. It's something that you believe and that you know.
Yes, that's right. And I love that you use the word knowing. I use it a lot myself. There's trust, there's belief, there's all of these different emotions and things that we feel. But then there's that intuitive knowing. And that is
Absolutely.
a whole different level. Yeah. And I always tell people, I grew up with a wonderful family. And we were telling each other we loved each other. Like my brother's thing to say before he went to bed every night was, "Good night, everybody. I love you. See you in the morning." And that was every single night, So I grew up in that beautiful environment. And yet I always tell people, until I was broken by that man, and then until my son was born, and I had to learn how to not just connect to myself again, reconnect to my family, who he tried his best to alienate me from, and connect to my child who was a part of me, that until I'd experienced that, really understood what that level of love was. It's a magical thing.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's so interesting you say that. It's so in line. I recently wrote a program for women that I call Reconnect. And I had a group of women, especially, women that went through a trauma. to
Yes.
really, really reconnect, because I believe that's where the transformation happens.
Yes.
The great disconnect, the trauma that we're not even aware of sometimes, disconnect us not only with our identity, but like you say, I'm actually just echoing what you said. Um,
Go for it.
but yeah, but it's absolutely connecting with your child, with your for the first time. I can really say the great, but it's been such a journey. I've studied hard. But it's self exploration the whole time. For years. I mean,
Yes.
it's not been a comfortable connect with myself. But it's the most beautiful thing you can do after the great disconnect, is to
Oh, yes.
truly make the time to connect with yourself again.
Yes, and you hit the nail on the head there. It is not an easy journey, and it takes time. It takes a lot of effort to do all that hard inner work. And nobody is going to hold you accountable to that. That is up to you to decide you want to do that. And I talk often about a full circle moment, and you're talking about doing the trail. You're talking about how every year you do something where you're pushing yourself, challenging yourself, and making yourself uncomfortable deliberately. And then we come back to that moment where you didn't want things to change. You didn't want to be uncomfortable. And for me, this is that full circle moment. You've gone from that person feeling broken and lying on the floor to actually putting yourself through uncomfortableness, because you now understand how
Love
much
it.
growth that brings to you. It's just a fantastic story and a fantastic realization and awareness of that. I love that Margaret was able to discover through her uncomfortableness of that moment, realizing that she didn't know who she was, how she had put her identity in other relationships and acts of service to people. Through her journey of self-discovery, she now embraces the uncomfortableness. And we're about to hear a lot more of that uncomfortableness that she now seeks out as a minimum once a year in some way, shape, or form. I would encourage all of you to understand that uncomfortableness can take us out into the unknown, into the uncertainty of how we may react or of what may happen in a different circumstance that we are not used to. For some people, life coaching is very much like that. Margaret and myself both offer life coaching services, and so I would encourage you to seek out somebody who you feel that you relate to. Life coaching is a very personal experience, and if you can feel that connection with your life coach, whoever and wherever they may be, seek them out. Give them the opportunity to show you that different perspective. It's just a fantastic story and a fantastic realization and awareness of that.
Absolutely, because I really believe your true colors in uncomfortable moments, like the things you need to work on. Now, I'm very scared now for what I'm saying because I'm going to do the 40 kilometers. But in those, like the bungee jump, oh my word, in those moments, you're scared, you're unsure. And I'm definitely not an adrenaline junkie, not at all.
I want to know why you picked doing
deal.
bungee jumping then.
It was just the year of the bungee jump, I just felt like it's symbolic, and it really was. And what's going to get me really out of my comfort zone? Type of thing. And it's literally in those uncomfortable moments where you can really see, I think, yourself, the mirror, and the great connect again. So this walking Camino for me is going to be without a cell phone. It's just going to be me, my sore legs, my good attitude, and my journal. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see And it's beautiful that you see it like that, because it really is the uncomfortable moments that inspires me as well.
Oh, that's so good. And it is those uncomfortable moments. And I often share with people that in life, I've always had a tendency to push myself into things. I've always liked challenge, and I learnt from a very early age that the more pressure was on me, the more I would rise to the occasion. So I learnt to use pressure in a positive way. Look at it from a different perspective. And the fact that you are deliberately making yourself uncomfortable and challenging yourself, but to know that through that process, every time you have to step into and through that fear for that new experience and that new challenge, you're growing just that little bit more and you're experiencing just that little bit more. That's such an amazing awareness and connection to have with yourself. Thank you so much for sharing that with our listeners.
It's such an honor. And for me, if you know me, you'll know I do it scared. And like you can see, I'm nervous about this Camino. It's not something I go on stages and say, hey, I'm like a top fit walker type of thing. This is literally someone that's been in our house for 5 months, going to do a 40-kilometer walk. But yeah, you get it. You get the personal stepping out, being afraid, but also the symbolic pilgrimage for this year for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Instead of the jumping out of the nest thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And I should actually, I don't have it on me at the moment, but I've got a set of inspirational cards. And on one of those cards, I have a man that I photographed. There's a beautiful story behind it, which I won't go into now. But he's like this, but we can only see him from the back, and we see his shadow. And his shadow is a very large version of what he's doing, which is a warrior pose.
Oh, wow.
And in that moment, it was a very intuitive photographic session that we did together. And we just wanted to explore who he was as a person. And so here I have this image, and I put on it a quote of my own that I absolutely adore. And it's something that I live and breathe every single day. And it is to be able to look in the mirror and see myself looking back at me, to be comfortable with who I am, essentially to summon my inner warrior, because she's a person that rises up to the challenge. She's a person that gives me, she's a part of me. So she's that part of me giving me the strength to get through those moments. And I literally look at that and I say, hello, Vera, my inner warrior, take my hand and walk with me today through the world. It takes my breath every time I say it, because it's so powerful. And you don't get there unless you've done all that work. You
Absolutely. No, that's
exactly.
But you should, like, your pixie tail should be your warrior symbol. I love symbols. I really love symbols, and it's such a, and it's yours.
Yeah. Just so our viewers know what we're talking about. Right at the start, Marguerite wanted to just, like, she loved my pigtails and she wanted to just pull and tug them. So I was doing it for her so she could get it out of her system. But please keep going.
On that.
You're still on it. I love it.
But but it's again the great connect within yourself, but also, Vera, the power of your story, like owning each chapter. I mean, I've got so many that I'm not proud of, but I had to go and face so much chapters, and it's been sad and so much loss. I've lost a lot of people, like my parents. I get sad, and it's been a tough journey, so it's not for the faint-hearted. I won't recommend if you want, stay a victim. Don't, it's hard to stand up. It's hard to find your voice. It's hard to own each chapter in your book. But it's the most beautiful thing I could have done for my son if I look back.
Yes,
I didn't know I was doing it. exactly, to really, really embrace this person, that I am. And one of the first things I ask my clients to do is to write a letter to their younger self. The first thing, you won't even know me almost, and I'm going to ask you to do that. And I do that specifically. You must sit with a photo of yourself and you must write yourself a letter. And because I truly believe the magic happens when you look at little Vera and there's beautiful, I can't even, that's where magic happens, and I really just recommend this great connect, the cocoon phase is necessary, the heart phases is necessary, but it's absolutely with such a bigger picture in mind as well.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to share something too, just picking up on what you've brought up a couple of times now in those stages of grief. So you are obviously still grieving the passing of your parents. I get that. You had to grieve the lost situation with yourself, the lost identity. You had to grieve the loss of the life you had. And the stages of grief, in my experience, don't have a definitive end. They have a definite start, but it's like a cycle that we can start jumping between at any point in that journey. And I did a 5-part series a few years ago called The Stages of Grief. And I wrote some very personal sentences about those pieces and about that stage of going through all of those parts and jumping between and back and forth with some of them, and then finally after time getting to acceptance, but then sometimes jumping back into a bit of depression or denial, or and that it is a very fluid experience. And at that point in time when I created that artwork, those words I made in a font that was illegible, because it was so personal to me that although I was ready to communicate visually what those stages of grief felt like, I wasn't ready to quite put it out there in written form as well, because for me, that was feeling like it was everything I had. And the interesting thing is I talked about that series earlier this year and changed the font to one that everyone could read. And I actually read those words out. Wow. And it showed me the power of a different perspective and the power of time and the power of owning your experiences, and the fact that through adversity, we achieve what we would never have achieved. I mean, would you have ever gone down this path in your life if that moment had never happened?
You know what? Never. I wouldn't even have, it wouldn't have even been part of my brain. I always have the metaphor of an eagle. Now, when a little eagle, baby eagle, gets bigger, he doesn't want to get out of the nest. So the mom starts to pluck his feathers, to really getting him uncomfortable. He doesn't like it to be in the nest. So she basically, in a loving way, forces him to fly out of the nest.
Tough love.
And my feathers were plucked.
Yes, yeah, well and truly.
Oh, man, I know. It was plucked.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I mean, I never will promote divorce. I'll never say leave. I'll never, but when things aren't healthy, when people aren't happy, my feathers were plucked. So I had to jump out of my nest because I was absolutely in a comfort zone and I would have stayed in it for the rest of my life. So after I jumped and saw my life coach, just to try and summarize, I basically started a nonprofit from scratch, and I did that for almost 11 years. And I really if I look back again, that's where I did a lot of writing and work on radio and, books. It's like still, if I talk about it, I actually can't believe the beautiful journey since my feathers were plucked. Like, I wouldn't have even dreamed it.
Yeah, and the strength. Like for me, when I think of the eagles and I think of that mum and that tough love, and I think what a powerful bird they are.
Absolutely.
Do you feel like you've transformed into that mother eagle now?
Oh, I love it. I can say without a doubt and immediately yes. Like my I feel strong. My feathers, my emotional feathers. I don't have it all together. Don't for a moment think I do. But I can really say when I talk to you, there's a connect. There's a and I think I love sharing stories. Like but it's definitely been a mentality shift as well from victim to what am I going to do to change this? So I don't see myself as the superwoman. I definitely have my moments, but the strength, the inner strength that I've learned from all of this, money will never be able to pay. Never. No book, nothing. you can't. Like I really thank this journey. I thank my feathers being plucked, otherwise I would have stayed stuck where I was.
Yes, and I love that you're still in touch with your vulnerability, because that's a really valid point and something that women in particular, often as a mother, we step up even when we don't feel like it inside.
Yeah.
We will step up and put on that it's okay for our children. We will get through this. And if you don't feel that strength, you will produce it for the sake of your child, to have that trust, that safety, that security.
Absolutely.
And that knowing that everything's going to be okay and somehow mum's going to work it out. So I often feel that vulnerability is essential to the strength that you have.
And that's what I wanted to add with what you said about mourning a little earlier. Like I don't know why, in my head, I thought I'm weak if I show how sad I am. And that's not the truth. Like, you're real if you're sad. You're real if you really acknowledge in front of your child. Like last week, I had very sad news about a family member. And that's what I got emotional now about, because it's my dad's brother. And I was so sad. Like, I cried my eyes out, and I'm really still very emotional. It's human. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we as women say to each other, it's okay to be sad.
Yes.
It's okay to fall apart, to have your days, but never stay stuck in rock bottom. There's such a beautiful life waiting on the other side of that for you.
Yes, it's so true. And interestingly enough, I was interviewed by a lady that I have met over the past couple of months. Her name's Vivian, and she interviewed me for her group. And I was recounting one scene from my story when I had woken up from a coma, and I'd created this amazing piece of artwork to represent that moment, to represent what it felt like to feel my body suffocating and dying. And then waking up 3 days later, knowing that my inner warrior had gone and fought that physical battle for me when I couldn't. And I'm choking up a little bit as I say it, because it is still, I'm so in touch with that, because you don't ever disassociate from that emotion, because that is who you are. That is what makes you stronger every day. So here I was telling this story to her on this interview, and tears, I'm just wiping away my tears now, but tears were just streaming down my face, because I'd recounted these moments, and every time I recount them like that, I almost relive it. And she thanked me for explaining that it's okay to cry. And I said to her, I'm always giving people, particularly women, the permission to cry, because once you give them permission, they release, and that release is so important. And I said to her, I actually started laughing because I said, I actually love the fact that now, instead of trying to tell my story and being and not being able to talk, now I can keep talking, and it's just the tears will flow, you know.
I believe, and listen, you're talking to Miss Crybaby from South Africa. I believe in the power of tears. There's happy tears, there's sad tears, there's angry tears.
Yes.
And there's really like, there's this mourning, I believe in the power of tears. Absolutely. Yes. So I love you sharing that and giving other women permission, because it's really not for me a sign of weakness. It's a sign of, of really being human at the end of the day.
Yes, it certainly is. Well, thank you so much for coming onto my podcast. I have thoroughly enjoyed hearing more about your story and your transformation, and I have just got the most amazing visuals in my head of how I would represent that. It's a beautiful story to share, and I'm so honoured that you've been able to be so transparent for this podcast and for the viewers. Thank you.
I really love being here. Thank you so much for inviting me. It really is an honor, and I will give you feedback of how the Camino went.
Please do.
I will.
So that's in September, you said?
Yes, it's in a month's time.
Yes,
in exactly a month. Yeah. I would love to, you can tell me something that I can do for you on the road. Your name or your podcast name or something.
Fantastic. Absolutely. We will make sure that you document this is WhyMe moment while you're out there.
Oh, I'll do pixie tails.
Yes. Get a little piggy tails.
Your warrior signature.
That's right. Yep. Pigtails, the warrior pose. This is WhyMe.
There you go. It's going to be so cool. I'm going to send that to you.
Fantastic. I love it. Well, thank you so much again. And for the viewers, we will put Margaret's link to how you can contact her in the description. So thank you very much. And I'm going to really look forward to hearing about your experience on the Camino.
Looking forward to sharing it with you again.
Thank you, Margaret. Another fantastic interview with another beautiful soul. And Margaret and I had a fair bit more discussion after that podcast ended, as many of my guests and I do. The interesting thing is that connection that is possible over a Zoom call, even though you're perhaps thousands or many thousands of kilometers away, it is still possible when you are looking at somebody and you are talking to them, hearing their voice, to make that connection like you would a friend. And I call Margaret a friend now, as I do for many of the people who have come on to my podcast as guests, where we have felt that connection. The inspirational cards that I mentioned are in development at the moment, and if you would like to be informed of when they are available, you can sign up for the WhyMe newsletter at whymemovement.com.